Welcome to Career in Ruins, where this week neither Lawrence or I have been arrested for robbing the Louvre. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm all right. I'm very excited about today's podcast.
Yes, we got a good podcast lined up. I really enjoyed last week's as well, actually. We had a great season so far.
Last week's was one of those that it took me many days to stop thinking about what we chatted about. It was so nice to hear about Rose's experiences of merging art and archaeology, and I spent far longer than I'd care to admit scrolling through her paintings online and wishing I could buy one and hang one on my wall. It was just such a lovely intersection of two lovely parts of the historic environment. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, and it's what we do the podcast for, right? It gets people thinking about different things that they wouldn't necessarily associate with archaeology and understand the people behind that incredible work, and Rose demonstrated that perfectly. What's been on your mind? Anything in particular?
I need to ask, have you watched Firefly yet?
No.
Outrageous.
No,
you
I
never
need to
take
find
my
a way of watching
recommendations.
it. I haven't got a way of watching it.
Oh, fair enough. No, the only thing that's been sort of top of my mind this week is obviously our field school this year has been heavily featured in a brand new TV show that's coming soon.
With old Sandy.
Yeah, Sandy Toksvig's Hidden Something Treasures. I
Gems,
think.
history, heritage.
It's in there somewhere. But I had such a lovely day out when they were down there filming and watching Sandy get involved, and it gave me great hope for archaeology on TV, because I mean we've dabbled in the dark arts of talking about archaeology in front of a camera, and we know it can be quite dry and emotionless and matter of fact at times. But it was lovely to see a host of a show seem to genuinely care and invest emotionally in what they were doing. And I don't want to give away too many spoilers, but there were some genuinely lovely moments with watching Sandy at the trench edge with some of our students, chatting to them, enjoying the archaeological process. And I honestly think it will make great TV, and I can't wait to watch it.
Oh, well, here's hoping you don't hit the cutting room floor.
Oh, I'm never going to make that. I won't be in it. We know that.
Well, I got down, I wanted to talk to you about heritage crime. And I was going to go on a massive rant. But I noticed today that the Time Team podcast came out, and there's a whole section on it on heritage crime and the work that Stuart Ainsworth's been doing with Chester University and the police up there. And he's very eloquent, and he is very positive about what he's been doing. Slightly different to what I want to talk about, but I don't want to steal any thunder. So I'll come back to that maybe in a week or so's time when I can be a bit more grumpy and not take the positive wind out of those sails. But
that's a shame. I was getting quite comfy in my chair, ready to sit back and just let you rant.
Let me paint a different story for you, because I was on a dog walk this afternoon, and there's an old railway line that's been converted into a cycle trail near me, and walking the dogs and pushing the pram down there. Look up, I can see Hambledon Hill, and it's the only part of the valley lit up in sunlight. And I was like, isn't it beautiful? Aren't hill forts great? Isn't landscape great? And at the bottom of Hambledon Hill, there's this little earthwork that I've always looked at and gone, that's interesting. And it got me to thinking, and I'll give you I'll ramble for a bit longer while you think about this question I'm about to pose to you. But after a long series of different thoughts going through my head, it got me to thinking about the weirdest advice you ever had as an early careers person that ended up being bang on the nail, or like the most intimidating or the scariest advice. Because I was thinking about this earthwork. I was like, oh really? What I should do is team up with Bournemouth University academics and some students, do some geophysics on it, and maybe it's not scheduled, maybe stick a little trench over it. And at no point did that scare me as an idea. I was like, wow, I can do my proper research, I can have a proper research question, I can do my due diligence, make sure I've got the funding to do the post-ex and all that. But I've got a question, I'm genuinely interested about it. I could do it as and when I find the time. And then it got me thinking about when I was working on the Duratrigas Big Dig as a site supervisor, which will be on channel more 4 very soon, and hopefully with Derek Faisal and as Sandy. This is some years ago, maybe 2008, I reckon. No, 2010. Anyway, and I was talking to Miles Russell about a little Roman site I'd found at the time. I was like, oh, it'd be great to do something there. And I must have been maybe 23, 24 at the time. He's like, I'll just do it. And I was like, what? No, I can't do this. I'm not anywhere near senior enough. I haven't got the knowledge or the ability. No one can just dig it. You have to turn up and dig for someone else. And it's taken me, I reckon, I'm making myself younger here. I was about to say 10 years, but no, probably more like 15 years, and the rest. But a long time to get to the point where you're comfortable and confident enough to know your archaeology, know what your question is, and understand that if you're not going to cock it up or do things for the wrong reason, or you've got the right processes in place, anyone's capable of asking the questions and doing it. And at the time, it made me smile a bit, because at the time it was the most outrageous bit of advice or statement that anyone had given me. But it's nice to reflect now as a perhaps more established or more senior archaeologist that yeah, you can do it.
Our little Lawrence is all grown up.
How about your commercial days? Did you get any dodgy advice?
To me, nothing that I'd care to repeat on the podcast for fear of being cancelled. That kind of doesn't undermine what I was going to bring into today's podcast, but it makes it feel much less serious, which is slightly concerning. But we've talked a lot about various TV shows in the past and how they integrate archaeology into their plot lines. And I was watching one of our favourites the other night, Lawrence. I was watching Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Oh, nice.
As
Classic.
You do.
Classic.
And I can't remember the last time I watched the final season, because it all gets a bit shaky at times. There's some very questionable ethics and morals, particularly around the Prime Directive and letting entire planets die. Anyway, that's an aside. But there was a great bit of archaeology in there, or a bit of archaeology in there, and I'd forgotten about it, and we didn't talk about it when we did our Star Trek recording many moons ago. So I thought, I've got to bring it up in the next podcast, because it kind of hit one of my buttons, I'll be honest. It worked for me. And it was an episode where Picard gets kidnapped by a bunch of space pirate looters and travels around looting ancient Vulcan artifacts. And Picard's there authenticating them with this fancy doodah of a Star Trek machine. But it was essentially just a portable XRF. He was doing spectral analysis of these pots to find out what they wanted to know. And I thought, that's it. That's me. It's space me. And I was so happy.
So when the portable XRF even looks like a phaser, it's because it was a phaser.
In this case, it was in the benchtop setup, so it didn't look quite as much like a phaser as I would have liked. But it was just when he kept saying, "Oh, run spectral analysis." I thought, "Oh, that's my day job."
Nerd. So what you're saying is that Picard had to be kidnapped and forced to do this stuff to do it, for it to be a viable, like, interesting job.
Yeah. He's better off captaining a starship, I think.
Yeah, and no one else would do it in their right mind normally, right?
No, you have to be kidnapped and have a little thing on your neck that makes you work, otherwise your head blows up. Or a job in academia.
How is that thing in your neck?
Throbbing.
Enough about our stupidity. Let's move on to today's interview, and I'm really pleased to have the person with us today. We have got David Connolly, who, in his own words, it could be seen as an annoyingly outspoken Scotsman. However, in our words, we would call him the founder of the British Archaeological Resource, Past Horizons, a fantastic campaigner for equality and fairness in archaeology, and an all-round great guy. David, welcome to Career in Ruins.
How can I live up to that? I'll try, because I'm modest as well. Very modest, man.
Welcome, David. I'm looking forward to today. There's going to be lots that we're going to need to just pull out, and yeah, it could go on for 2 hours, but let's try and keep it to the normal time. As ever, I think we've explained in advance or chatting to you, but if not, you may have listened to one or two episodes before. We've got a standard format of the podcast, and our first question is, please, can you tell us about your career in ruins?
Blimey, it's a labyrinth of ruins, basically, in a very, very nutshelly type way. I started when I was 5 when I excavated a budgie skeleton from my mother's back garden using her fish knives, which was a mistake, I realise. Especially when my granny found out and introduced me to the hand that moves very fast.
Did you know the budgie skeleton was going to be there?
No, it was fabulous. I was actually planting raspberries, I think, and there was this. Oh, what's this? So I went up and got the correct tools, 2 fish knives.
So it wasn't her favourite budgie that she'd buried. Maybe
Fortunately,
a year
not.
Before.
It wasn't Dinky. No, Dinky was safe. The horror of what might have been in that garden, but anyway, I'm not going to think about that. Now. Thank you for spoiling my childhood. I realised at that point I was really, really, really interested in this sort of thing, and at the age of, I've still got this little certificate. The sad thing is, the teacher knew I loved archaeology, and he almost got the certificate right, where he went, David Connolly is the boy most likely to follow Geoffrey Wheeler in a career in archaeology. Bitter disappointment for me. I had no idea who Geoffrey Wheeler was even. And in a cruel twist of fate, I went to actually see Mortimer Wheeler in Glasgow, and he died a week before. Maybe he had heard I was coming. I don't know, and he knew that I couldn't. But it was basically from there, and I started at the age of 13. I was doing some work in a cave in Wye Valley, and then I went to France with this crazy doctor, Dr. Tom Roger, who also taught me how to drink and smoke, which seemed to he convinced me was an integral part of being an archaeologist. I came back. I went the route of the sort of the the Archaeology Society, and that was the opportunities you had. You were talking earlier, and it reminded me of Noel Foyut, then sort of before Historic Scotland, and I was doing something in my 6th year at school. I wanted to do pollen analysis for some strange reason. And I went to him and said, I'd really, really like to do some pollen analysis. Can I dig a ditch through Maiden Castle? Not the Maiden Castle, you'd be glad to know. It was a scheduled monument in Scotland in Midlothian. And he went, no problem. Off I went. My mum sat in a deck chair with a sort of flask and some sandwiches, I whacked my way through, I did a trench through the ditch, collected a pollen samples all the way down, and it was brilliant. But he just said, you can do it, and I could. And that was the most amazing bit of advice I got. I went to university, and I was appalling at it. Absolutely appalling.
Sounds familiar.
I did discover that I was horrendously arrogant, that I knew what I was doing, damn it. So I left with the ringing endorsement in my ears from Captain Mercer saying, you'll never make anything of yourself, boy. And he was right in a way. But I went off to York, and that's where I started really my career in archaeology. And I ripped the muscles in my back, which actually was one of the best things that happened to me, because it meant you're not able to dig, you can draw. And so therefore I started to be the draftsman. And the drafting took me to survey. The survey took me to illustration. And then I discovered I had lots of skills. And so I ended up in the Middle East, in Turkey. And people were getting up three archaeologists for the price of one, which was handy. So I ended up being passed around. That sounds worse than it. Yeah. So I'd be up in Turkey, I'd be sent down to Iraq, or I would end up in Jordan, which I love Jordan still. And then I would come back to York or to Lancaster, and I would just wander. I was peripatetic and wandering around. And I learned from so many amazing people how to do photography, so that when photogrammetry came in, this is the shocking thing. It's like, how old am I? Oh, well, actually, I'm going to get my bus pass in 2 months' time. But before there was this sort of structure from motion photogrammetry, I was involved in the photo modelling version 0.1, where we were modelling some stuff up in the islands of Scotland. Drone flights. I remember my drone flights where it was lucky if the drone could do a parabolic thing before crashing into the ground. We were still using poles. All these different things. Buildings archaeology. It seems that myself and two fabulous other people, Andy Hollenrich and Andy Dunn, were sort of one of the first ever buildings archaeologists that was out there recording this Alloa Tower. But we were listening to architects, we were listening to stonemasons, we were learning from photographers, we were getting all this massive information, and people were genuinely generous with letting you know what was going on. And so I ended up stupidly as a poacher turned gamekeeper when I became a planning archaeologist. So that nothing got past me. It's like, don't try that one on me. I enjoyed that, but I still enjoyed the sort of the actual physical nature. I recognized that something was going wrong when I was writing letters, and there was all these spaces appearing on my letters, and I realized it was my tummy was gently resting on the space bar. So I moved on from that, but yeah, basically sort of there's a whole world out there of archaeology to do and enjoy. I really enjoy the community archaeology aspect of it as well, which then led me into stupid things like sort of doing a lot of radio. I love radio. All my TV appearances, I'm quite secret. I think not digging. There was not digging for Britain. The other one. Oh, I'm shocking now. I'll get.
Great British Dig.
Thank you. If you watch carefully, I play an azalea at one point.
I saw you on that one. Was that the one near Hadrian's Wall?
That's the one. Antonine Wall. I was hiding it.
Antonine, that's it, yeah.
That was an amazing dig itself. And it was because of the accumulated experience, a trench in somebody's back garden, 2 meters long, 1 meter wide, eventually a 20 centimeter square at the bottom. But we'd completely changed the shape of the fort. We'd found the pottery. We'd found what's that damn stuff? Roman hypocaust tile. We'd found for inside the walls. We'd found the wickerwork from the actual wall itself, and we found the turves, the first sort of 50 centimeters of turves, and the foundations. And it was like, job done. Thank you very much. And I really loved that. And it was the people that were on it as well. There was some really young. There was young. They're not young now. But they were sort of, they were open, and they were like me when I was their age. It's like they were sort of going, well, how did you know that? What was that? I'll remember that. And it's a, as I say, it's a scattergun career, which seems to have no direction apart from just enjoying archaeology and sharing that enjoyment. I've not even mentioned BAJR yet.
I was going to say, before we get you on to BAJR, because I'm very keen to chat about that, there's a couple of great bits of life advice that popped up in your story there, David. The first one is having skills, and specific skills like the draftsman, the drawing skills, the illustration skills. It sounded like that opened doors to you to go to places and take those skills with you. And it's advice I often give to my students at the moment is, if there is one bit of the degree, one skill within the degree you can master early on, it'll likely get you to interesting places. Yeah. And then you can get to the second bit of advice, which is just being around people and engaging and listening. It's the greatest non-secret in becoming an archaeologist. Is I've learned so much from the people I've been fortunate enough to work with, various people, various professors, various diggers, various project officers who've just taken the time to explain things. And if you listen and you're keen and you engage, you get loads out of it. And I think anyone starting out in archaeology, and if any of my students do listen, which I don't think they do, take that advice, engage, because you get back 3 or 4 times what you put in when you do that. I'll shut up now.
My granny had a fabulous thing, and it's probably translated into every language in the world, but it's like, you've got one tang and you've got 2 ears, use them. And it was like, that's fair enough. And it's just listening and sort of going, so could you explain that again? And usually if you ask that question, people are not going to go, they're going to go, oh, yeah, I've been waiting all my life for someone to ask me, how does that work, or what can you do? And it really means that, I have to be careful what I say here. Names will be changed to protect the innocent. If you use a diff GPS, for example, on a rover, and you learn to press that button, and then this button, and then after you've done that, press that button, and then move to the next spot. You've not learned what you're doing. You're just doing what you're told. If you then ask a proper surveyor, so what would I do if this happens, or I've had a problem here, and they'll go, you do this, and it means you can adapt and change to the circumstances, and you don't end up with, I still have tremors about it. Nobody, they did a 13-kilometer transect, but they didn't close the transect. And so therefore, when they were trying to find all the sites again out in the desert, there were kilometers eventually away because of the deviations that had come in. And they didn't know about closing a transect because they had just been told, press this button, press that button, and move on. So ask.
But life's easier if you don't ask.
that was a good rant as well.
Before we move on to these let's say latter stages, I mean, these things have been going for a while, but we'll come on to the most recent stages. Of those things you mentioned there, were there elements you particularly enjoyed, or one particular job that was your favourite? Like, it sounds like planning was not great.
I love this eye is 1 to 20, and the right eye is 1 to 50. And I absolutely, the thing I loved about planning, and I mean, I've learned recently that I'm slightly, everybody's on the spectrum, of course. And that was one of the things. It's like, I loved capturing the big and making it small. And I'm now wearing glasses, as you can see, but your lovely Modcat listeners, the thousands cannot see that I'm wearing glasses now. And that's my one hatred, my one love was being able to take a site. And I prided myself in being able to draw. And in fact, I was at Bird Oswald for a couple of days just for fun. And I was challenged to draw a 5-meter stretch of Roman road, pebble by pebble, in an hour. And I took that challenge. I nearly won. I did nearly win. But I had, they had to sort of point to a pebble on the ground, and I would point to it on the plan. And I loved that sort of capturing, because only then if you're looking that close, can you see the little things. So the draftsman, I love being a draftsman. There should be more draftsmen in the world. Draftsperson. Draft people?
Drafts.
Drafts. There should be more drafts in the world, yeah.
We've got to now, I think, get you on to BAJR, David, because it's I would consider myself a career-long consumer of BAJR, I think, in that.
I think the technical term's BAJRite.
BAJRite. Often a silent observer. I will say I'm always very nervous of saying anything on the internet, which is alarming given we're recording a podcast at the moment. But I from my very first archaeological job, from looking for my very first archaeological job, through being in the profession in various places and industries, right the way to the point of ordering a job lot of BAJR skills passports for our students, and advising that they could go and look at the CBA website or the CIFA website, but just go and look at BAJR. It's easier. Yeah. So I've been I'm going to say it, I've been a fan for a long time. And I still remember an era when I was out looking for jobs that if you wanted to see the group or the organisation who were championing salaries in archaeology, it was BAJR. And I remember that if you saw a job somewhere other than BAJR that wasn't advertised on BAJR, you knew it probably didn't meet the standards or didn't meet the wage standards. And as I say, been a fan for a long time. So how did it come about, David?
And while you're telling us about how it came about, can you give us an overview of what BAJR is for anyone that may not? Because it's not just jobs,
your
is
Majesty, by the way, now. Somebody put that up recently, and I like it, BAJR.
Your Bajestry.
What is BAJR? It's like, recently, that question was asked of me by certain organisations. CIFA, for example, is the professional organisation for archaeologists. FAME is a trade organisation for archaeological managers. Prospect, or Unite, are unions for archaeologists and heritage workers. And that's the same in almost every walk of life. So where does BAJR fit? And it's like, they sometimes try to denigrate it, the mysterious dark forces, by saying it is just a jobs site. It's a jobs advertising site. That's it. However, it has 15,000 members. It has an active membership of 8,000 people who will answer any question you want. It has free guides. It has a directory of every active archaeological society in Britain. It has a directory of every archaeological planning officer up to date, which is a real pain to keep up to date and council. It has, and I'm working on a new system for contractors. It helps the developer and the client to actually know what to do and who to go to and what to expect. So it is everything and more. It fills all the gaps in between and tries not to. I mean, I was looking at something. I said, I'm not the IFA or CIFA. I'm not a union. But if you've got no one else to go to, then it's kind of the A team. We'll come and sort it out for you. I have no problem, for example, in phoning up a company and saying, what about this? And then usually when I phone companies, by the way, they panic. What have we done? And it's become a sort of a behemoth. 26 years now, 25, 26 years it's been going, which is scary. And so therefore there's a lot to live up to. But in effect, BAJR is not just me. I'm not BAJR. I'm just your Majesty. BAJR is the entire community of archaeologists in Britain. When I talk to archaeologists in other countries, they all wish they had a similar BAJR where they could go and just ask a question or get advice or rant or find a guide about how to take photography of artifacts or where to get jobs. And as Derek was saying, it's like the trust. At the moment, there's one company that's been trying to advertise with me for 2 weeks now, and I've said no, because I put the well-being of the British archaeologists above me eating, basically. So, yeah, BAJR does not fit into any neat box, sadly. BAJR is BAJR. There is nothing like it, really. But it's made out of the BAJRites, definitely. Yeah.
How did it come about?
Oh, fortunate, and I've been prepared for that question. So the quick answer, again, is I had a really shitty, can I say that?
Yeah.
Thank you. Website back in 1997, Backtrack Archaeology. Wow, for all your illustration needs. And it was truly terrible. I class it up there with, you might remember sort of GIFs where you had sort of little frogs bouncing across your screen because they could. You're too young for this. No.
I mean, it sounds like the sort of website I would have loved.
And so therefore it was like, well, what's the point? And then we always all had to go to the Guardian to actually find the adverts, and sort of there was a little line. And so I thought, okay, what I'll do is I will contact people, and I'll try, and then they would send me an email. This was new and exciting. Email. Wow. And I would transcribe it over. And from that, within about a year, I realized that there was a little bit of power to be had there, but good power, because if I didn't think they were getting paid enough, pardon me, you can cut that one out.
Or whiskey. So
I realized that I had a little bit of power, where if I didn't think that the wages or the conditions were good, and they were pretty bad back then, I would refuse the advert. If I refused the advert, they wouldn't get the staff. And so there was a lot of, shall we say, tension at the beginning, that I was a dictator. I was forcing people to, they would destroy British archaeology by this. But bit by bit, it did that. And then more and more people sort of started to accrue around it. And the forum, which was pretty brutal back then, BAJR baiting, were a pretty brutal forum, but you could say what you want. You could really have a go at people. And it started that ball rolling where there was a voice, and to be honest, for me, it started with a fanzine called The Digger, which was a sort of a newsletter that got printed and sent out. And it was weird. It was a bit like the Dread Pirate Roberts from The Princess Bride, where I will hold my hand up. I was once the digger, as well as 3 other people who were also the digger. And it was very reactionary, and it didn't hold back. And I thought, this is what I would like to be. I'm an archaeologist. I'm a digger. This is how I'd like to sort of push back against establishment. I now sound like an old Werther's original advert. Now I'm the establishment. But when it started, it was really pushing back against IFA at the time, to the point where open warfare came out, which was good in a way. But it took a stance, and I would honestly say that in 26 years, that stance has never wavered. There's been no deviation from it. And there's nothing you could say to me to make me change my mind about providing decent pay, providing decent conditions, ensuring that the safety of your staff is paramount. So I don't change from that. And because of that, and it's a lesson to be learned, it's like, because of that, I'm trusted. And trust goes a long way, it seems. And that's what I'm most proud of, is that BAJR is trusted. And that if we say something, also, we get stuff wrong. I'm using this we, that is not the royal we. That's we as BAJR. So we get it wrong. We'll change our mind. We'll apologize. We'll say, no, you're right. That was my mistake. So we're honest and trustworthy. How did I get here? This is now turning into a psychiatric. So that BAJR basically started out of a desire to make things better. That was a nutshell. You can just take it down to that. There you go.
Love it. And I mean, its legacy of those 26 years, and as you say, you stayed true to that. And I mean, you touched on pride there, and perhaps we'll move on to that question in a bit. But it certainly is something to be proud of in terms of that legacy and that influence and that continued tweaking and modification, and then bringing in suggested pay scales, and even today, as you say, turning down job applications or job adverts because they're not for the benefit of the community, which is just something definitely to be proud of and hugely commendable. I forgot where I was going to go with that. Sorry. It's a slight deviation, but I got a slight hint of the power of BAJR in a very low key, sort of not important, slightest possible way at all. But when I was doing my master's back in 2011, should have been writing my thesis or something like that, and I decided it would be good to create something called World Diggers Day, and where everyone just put a picture of Indiana Jones on their Facebook page. It had no substance or meaning. It was just about celebrating and it was something to get distracted with. And I remember messaging you, David, at the time, and we'd never met. I don't think I'd even messaged you ever before that. And you're like, yeah, this is great. Yeah, we'll promote it. And I'm sure largely driven by the BAJR community and everyone, and the fact that Facebook was still quite a novel thing back in 2011. Like thousands and thousands of people across the world, but predominantly in the UK, stuck Indiana Jones in their Facebook page. And it's just a little glimpse into the sort of the influence and the positive, from a positive nature of what BAJR can do. And if you can do that with a rubbish theme of sticking Indiana Jones in your Facebook profile picture, I've no doubt, and I know from experience and seeing what's done, it has huge influence on many, many more positive things.
Thank you for that. I remember that's actually one of the key things I get is. Today, somebody contacted me and they just they said, I'm not a professional archaeologist, so I realise I can't really be a member of BAJR, but I just wanted to comment on this. And I said, fine, no problem. I said, you're quite right, you can't really, but send me what you've said is really interesting, it's really important. So send it to me and I'll put it up. And they get back going, I didn't actually think you were going to reply. But why not? It's like it's really important to be that, and it's like I get this again and again. It's like we tried to contact X or we tried to contact Y, and they've never got back. And there I am on the phone with somebody going, my daughter wants to do archaeology. What would you suggest? And I'm on the phone for half an hour. And it's having that time, it's going right back again to that, having that time to listen to people and for them to act on what you're saying as well and give them the advice. And so is that called paying it forward or paying it back? I don't know. Paying it back. So I realize that BAJR has a massive influence, but it's not, as I say, I'm often called a dictator. It's a benign dictatorship if it's anything, because it listens to what people want and has time for everybody, I think, is the important bit. And again, I'm talking about BAJR as BAJR, not just as this. I'm now become a silver fox, I think. Who knows? And if I may, it's interesting. I've been diving deep into the world of pseudo-archaeology, crossing swords with the likes of Graham Hancock.
Oh, stand-up guy.
Yeah. And one thing which I discovered was actually bloody annoying was engaging and saying things like, sometimes I end up incredibly frustrated, especially when it's abuse. But, for example, you'll talk about Göbekli Tepe. And I say, well, actually, you know about Göbekli Tepe. I've done lots of work in that region on sites of that period. What do you want to know? And they go, well, why are you hiding? I say, I'm not hiding anything. What would you like to know? Here are a list of sites you can do. Here's some links to some information about this period. Yeah, but, T-pillars. And I go, T-pillars are really exciting. You'll also find them at Karahan Tepe. Did you know they make mini ones? I didn't know they made mini ones. Amazing. I went to Karahan Tepe and all I got was a T-pillar, said Grog. Then yes, but, the flood that came, and I went, no, there was no flood, because we can explain this, but if you'd like to know about floods, have a look at the stuff that was happening in 1920s and 30s in Iraq when they were, Woolley was having a look at that sort of stuff as well. And they go, no one's ever talked to us before. They usually just shout at us, and I am irrepressibly nice. I don't swear. I leave that to my lovely partner. I don't swear, and I love talking about archaeology. And so therefore there's that extra engagement. I'm also quite, I talk about stuff I know. And I also say to them, listen, they'll ask me a question. What about Ollantaytambo? Eh? The nubs on Ollantaytambo. And I go, I don't know. I really don't know. Yeah, but you don't know how the pyramids are built. And I went, I don't. I actually don't know. What do you mean you don't know? I don't know. And again, life lesson number 3, isn't this now? It's okay not to know something.
Yeah.
So again, the reason I'm getting better at this is because of BAJR has taught me to be patient, to listen, and to communicate without swearing much.
You must have the patience of a saint. I don't. Yeah, I think it'd drive me mad. One day of administration on BAJR, and I'd be banned permanently.
I understand where you're coming from, but the key point of BAJR is one of the rules is positive and polite. So I understand that's really, really bad. How can we make it better? Not, I understand that's really, really bad, and I'm just going to talk about how really, really bad it is. It's like, well, let's move that into somewhere where we can work with that. Let's do a BAJR guide. Let's do a campaign. Let's do a poverty impact report. Let's do something positive. Oh.
Love it. I love it. And that's a really positive note to progress, I think, onto the next 3 questions. And you touched on pride a bit already, but what is it of that fantastic career that is there anything in there that you're particularly proud of?
Beyond BAJR, I am very, very proud of BAJR.
Rightly so.
I'm proud of the Archaeology Skills Passport because I'm actually watching as it expands and it gives people an opportunity to enter a career in ruins. Aha! My partner often asks me, it's like, so shouldn't you be proud of archaeology, actually doing archaeology? And it's like, oh, good point. And when I get asked that question, I actually look back about the last site I was on. That's the one I'm proudest of, or the site I'm on. Because people have said to me, what's your specialism? And I go, whatever I'm doing at that point in time. I don't care. At the moment, I've been working on a 16th century castle in East Lothian. A couple of years back, I was working on a 15th century castle going right up to the 20th century Ottoman period castle in Saudi. And both equally amazing. Incredibly proud of it. I excavated one of the earliest stone houses about 10,500 years ago in Iraq in the 90s during Saddam's reign, which was fun. Massively proud of that. Massively proud of a wash house excavation I did from the it was 1910 it was built in a town called Haddington in Scotland. And I am so proud of that because it brought together communities and school career. We had over 1,000 people excavating in that trench over 10 days. Absolutely brilliant. Very proud of that moment. We had, don't try this at home, kid. We had heroin addicts recovering, emptying buckets for young archaeologists. We had women from one side of the river, a bit rougher, chatting with women from the other side of the river, a bit posh. It was just one of these moments, and so I cannot actually say which thing I'm proudest of because it's whatever I'm doing at that precise moment in time.
That's a very, very good answer. I think you've covered many bases there as well. The next question is slightly trickier though. We've dealt with pride now. Outside of your career, is there anyone or anything that someone else has done that you're particularly envious of?
Oh, envy. Love this. Don't open the box. At the moment, I'm very envious of a wonderful guy called Hugh Thomas, who's working out in Saudi just now. He's not Australian, but he's working for an Australian university. Incredibly jealous because of what he's getting to do. The joy, I'm going to wax lyrical briefly about Saudi, which is partly controversial, but actually, yet let him who is without sin casteth the first, etc. When I was there, I was actually chatting with women who were not wearing headscarves, who were driving cars, who were running businesses, who were the head of the GIS in a heritage organisation. But what I had there was an untapped, untouched resource. When I've been working in Iraq and Jordan and the rest of these Middle East and Syria, it's been looked at for hundreds of years. Saudi, however, was always closed, and it nearly opened up when the Germans put the Hejaz Railway in. Unfortunately, I think the First World War came in, and that put a kibosh on British people with pipes and +4s wandering around and pointing. And it only has opened up in the last 15 years to the point where what we're finding is mind-blowing and exciting. And at the moment, he's out there in Saudi, and he is finding things which don't exist until now. He is recording and excavating things which are new, brand new. And even myself, I've had a chance to, when I was surveying, I found a tiny little, I can tell you this because I can't tell you where it is, but you'll never find it. It's out in the desert. And we were just surveying some bits for security purposes. And I saw this wadi. And each of us went down a tiny little wadi. My wadi, I feel I was very lucky because there was a platform of black basalt surrounded by red sandstone orthostats, a double pair of them. So there must have been a screen. So you go into this tiny wadi, maybe 20 meters long. And at the far end was what I can only describe as yonic, with water pouring out of it from God knows where. So there was something rather sort of feminine in nature at the end of this wadi, with water dripping from it. On either side were depictions of cows. And the typology of these cows, we're looking at around about 8,000 years old for that inscription. And around them were these sort of 3 marks on the wall, hundreds of them, of these 3 marks. And it suddenly dawned on me what I was looking at was where people had been putting their 3 fingers into this orifice, wetting them, and then scratching down the sandstone walls to make these 3 marks. And I asked it, it's like, has anyone found anything like this before? Nope, new. And you're suddenly realizing what you've got there is just... So I am very, very envious of them just now, where they are getting to be there, and I'm not there just now. I love it, but why am I not there on the bleeding edge of Middle Eastern archaeology? Anyway,
that is a very good envy. And yeah, is there anywhere yet that people can learn about any of this, or as it uncovers, or
you can? Hugh Thomas, fortunately, he's been doing a new YouTube channel. You also find him on Twitter. Or formerly called, I don't know, Prince or something like that, X or something like that. He's a very good communicator. He loves telling people. We get on very well. I mean, he's very good at explaining what it is he's up to and what he's doing. And the photographs are stunning. And he's another person that doesn't mind sharing.
Sounds like next week's podcast sorted.
Yeah, there just now.
So we've covered the main questions there, and that's a brilliant envy, and I want to go away and find out more about that. Thank you, David. But the final question is all about our time machine. Derek and I have been working on this for several years, if not longer, tweaking it, just largely sticking to the rules, space-time continuum and all that. But no one's watching us, so if we need to break the odd rule, we can get away with it. But all we need to know is we can give you a return ticket to anywhere and anywhen you like, but we'd love to know what that is.
Well, I have been preparing for this. And my partner, Hanka, or Hannah, as I should give her a proper name, I'll get killed. She actually came up with a brilliant one, which was she wants to go back to each of her ancestors, back to the first fish that came out of the water, which I thought was
brilliant. A great answer.
That's brilliant. And just to sort of chat to them and sort of go, well, I suppose that up to them. And
all I can think of is Stuart Lee
coming up here with a barely developed lung.
He's finned.
That's the one. And the story I've just told you, I mean, I'd love to actually go in there and see what that ceremony was. But the place I'd really like to go back to is something which still gives me goosebumps. I was working at the site of Kermisderi in northern Iraq, and the American team who was working up at Nineveh saw me doing this thing called planning. Again, we're back to skills. And they were, that's amazing. How come you can draw that fast? I was going, I have a thing called a planning frame. My God. Would you come to Nineveh and would you plan this site for us? And so I went, fair enough. And Professor Trevor Watkins, who is possibly one of the coolest profs that ever has lived, allowed me to sort of, go off for 3 days to work at Nineveh. It's a place called the Halsey Gate. Now, we all know when Nineveh fell, though I can't quite remember. BC. And it was originally 20 meters wide. I mean, this was no tiny gate, 20-meter wide gateway. And someone at the time had narrowed the gate until it was only, I think, about 4 meters wide. They'd filled it full of mud brick. And I want you to imagine the city is in flames. Nineveh is falling. And it's a historical event. Nineveh is falling. And inside this gateway, what they wanted me to plan still haunts me to this day, because there was a horseman, a man on a horse. There was a small child, I can't remember, an infant of some sort, lying a little bit away from it. And about 8 or 9 men slumped within the gateway. They were peppered with arrowheads. They were still wearing the armor. They still had the weapons with them. And when I first saw this, it was evening. The smoke from Mosul was coming across. The cries of the Muazzam were happening. But at that point in time, I was taken back to a moment in history where, in my head, and this is one of the things that's important for an archaeologist is imagination. I was there when an officer in the army realized it was over. The city was going to fall. It was in flames. He gathers what's left of his men, 8 men. They get their spears, probably get their shields ready. He mounts his horse. Somebody gives him this child, which he puts into his arms. And they get behind the Halsey Gate. And at one point he goes, open the... Well, he does it obviously in cuneiform. He says the words, open the gate. They open the gate. And like some sort of scene from Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, they storm down this gateway and they don't make it. They are cut down in a hail of arrows. Every one of them down. And the gate falls on them. So the burning gate falls on them. They're not looted. They're not found until 1991. And I want to go there and it sounds shocking. I want to see this happening. I want to see them. And part of me wants to say, don't do this, but there's nothing I can do. I'm just an observer of a moment in time. There it is. Even just now. And if you could see it, I can show you, but there, all the hairs from 1991 to this day, I have wanted to be at that moment in time, it's a very rare thing you get in archaeology. Must Farm is another place. There's a moment in time, a few minutes either side, it's happened. Oh my God, I'd love to be there at the fall of Nineveh.
Yeah, I was there, man. It just made me love archaeology even more. That's a fantastic use of our time machine, David. But I think who needs a time machine when you can have such a fantastic sort of a picture painted to us by the professionals who got to experience it and dig it, and the honour and the privilege to actually sort of rediscover and reshare the narrative of those individuals. What did you say? 10,000 years? 3,000 years ago, BC, 3,000 years BC.
There's 300 something, so 2.5
But yeah, fantastic use. David, thank you so much for joining us for Career in Ruins and for sharing your brilliant career. Please keep up the great work with BAJR and all the other things that you're doing. And just keep going, man. We love it.
I thank you. I do thank you. And I'd like to thank all the BAJRites who have grown up with BAJR and are still with BAJR. So together we'll win.
Here. Thank you, as ever, to all our brilliant listeners. Thank you to the people on Patreon who keep this show going. And we look forward to catching you up on a new podcast soon.